It is actually to show that this entire area, the heart of Switzerland, around the lake, the mountains and everything, is very special, and it has moved mostly people who come here and saw it for the first time and they're fascinated. Like, yeah, lots of artists from Rachmaninoff, Wagner to Mark Twain and so on. And I'm surprised that these are the people who found this jewel here in the middle of Europe, and not the local people. The local people were too concerned in making a living. But the people who came here to see the beauty, or to see what other people said is phenomenous, that's the effect this entire area is. And Tom has got it very well. I mean, on one side is the landscape, it's the inspiration that comes through the landscape, and it's microclimate, you could say. That's one side, and the other side is then, what have people said when they were here? Why did they come here? Why did they? What made it that touched their heart? Why the history started with William Tell and so on, and then through the time getting rid of all the Habsburgs and well, we couldn't get rid of Napoleon, but he only cruised through here. But the getting together of all these things and the joining in a spirit that is not unique, but it was a spirit that got the people living around Switzerland to want something without influence from outside. And that's been from Gessler and William Tell as a story, all the way to the 18th, 19th century. So it's fascinating, and I think the landscape is to do with this. And the landscape is for people. It's not flat countryside where you could eventually think it's possible that everybody has the same ideas or will follow the same ideas. It's quite diverse here. It was a real residency in the sense that the artist worked in the space, he lived in the house, and we had quite a lot of interaction, communication, got to know each other, appreciate each other, and be always there when there's questions about what's where, how do I get this, where do I go to this, but besides the impressions that he would make for himself, what is Lucerne about, I would have a little bit of input on what should you see on top of it and where should you go, but not trying to influence too hard. So that was a residency which was very different from the other two residencies that I've been for.
One of the main themes that runs through all of my work is this kind of cycle of life and death, and I felt very connected with that when I came here. I think because there's so much history, because we've got such depth in the buildings and the way that things are saved. So the stories that you sort of, you took on that drive and you gave me a real kind of a proper tour of everything, and I feel like that gave me a little insight into how it was to live here historically, and now I'm trying to translate that sort of feeling of death and mortality, and certainly. So I think that the underlying theme of cycles of life and I mean, there's symbolism in almost every piece, really, and to do with the festival, to do with a lot of the writing is again about that. There's stuff about the mountains and theories on gods and my feelings towards that, and then the death is obviously in these pieces in the window, and but almost in every piece there's something symbolic in and in it.
First of all, I met him in Faro, looking for a space to exhibit, and I saw how he worked, which was absolutely amazing. In no time, he installed in his old premises. He made the whole atmosphere and the hanging and the light and everything, and I was impressed by that. His decision and then the making. And when I opened this gallery here with the concept of bringing the heart of Switzerland closer to everybody, I thought of him and I invited him to come and have a look and see if he thinks he can do something with it. So we drove around the lake and he took photographs and notes. Meanwhile, I know that he is of notes. Mostly, he's always doing notes. He's always making little squares and writing stuff in it. And in fact, when he started here, he had a long panel, 4 or 5 meters long, with little squares on it, what he's gonna do where and what's gonna be in it. So very methodically and very prepared and very goal-oriented. It's not an artist that waits for inspiration. He just pours it out and does it. Well, I was really impressed with it before, but for the last 3 weeks when he worked here, I was even more impressed. And it was fantastic how every day he was in the studio here, which was his studio, and it looked messy at times, no idea what's gonna happen. And in the end, it all pointed down to what is the exhibit now. So everything that you see was made here, practically everything. And the frames and the paintings, a few had been done before, he brought along, but meticulously doing those frames and extremely precise, the type of work he does, and he's always carrying along his thoughts that he puts on paper, and eventually they result in a piece of art.
Certainly, when we started this the project, and I arrived 3 weeks ago, I was asking for lots of different frames and things like that. And one of his friends, Stefan, he came over and delivered that painting, but he delivered it over here as to use the frame. And so I started thinking about that as an idea, and that became something which was actually quite important, I think, because it's kind of 3 stories about here. One's about Mark Twain and that kind of idea of being a writer, looking through the window and self-sabotage. Also then about Paul Klee, who and the kind of colour work and the theories on that. So that became almost like my working station to try and be like him. And then the third one, obviously, looking then at the painter.
Model, yeah, model, local.
And so that for me, became the most interesting thing, because it developed as a piece whilst I was here, and that really nice. In terms of something that I'm fascinated by, I love flowers because it's something I've never done before as well. And that was a photograph taken from a photograph I took when we first went on our little road trip. That as well, I think, is a powerful piece, because it kind of it was the idea of, I went downstairs beneath here, and there's cupboards, and one of the cupboards is all of the kind of masks and things from the festival. And I sort of like the idea that you had all these really crazy flamboyant things, but they're not seen for a year, and they're all in darkness. So the idea was to kind of create this this piece which is all of the energy of these wonderful moments, but in the darkness. Yeah, and obviously, called it primary colours and everything, purely to take everything, in jest about these things that are just sitting there ready for their next outing. So yeah, my daughter was here, and I think arriving here, and obviously having created things all slowly taken out of boxes and everything else that I brought along, and trying to kind of make sure that I had some form of order, and that's how I work a lot. And actually, she arrived. She was here from when I arrived, and I put these paintings here. But there was a moment where I was giving her a pencil so she produced a drawing. She was fascinated. I unboxed all the work and everything was laid around, and I was looking after her for some time, and she was down here, and so I gave her some things because she loves painting next to. And she started drawing. These were leaning against the floor, and then there was a line of pencil work that went all the way across there, all the way along the wall. And I was kind of, I was a bit, bloody hell, I'd only just arrived really, and that definitely stood out as a moment. Being here and kind of, I guess felt quite strange having these 2 glass windows and having that sort of voyeuristic thing that's going on as well. That was quite strange, whereby people sometimes stopped and looked through the window for quite a long period of time, and that at the start was something that felt a bit weird, and then afterwards I go into a weird flow state, just not really, but and then also that was kind of